Okay, let us settle in once more, allowing the weight of the day to gently release from our shoulders and from our minds. We are preparing for a journey, not across land or sea, but through the quiet corridors of time. We seek the story of the conclave, the ancient and solemn tradition of choosing a pope. Let your breath be your anchor, soft and rhythmic, as we drift back further and further into the embrace of history. Imagine the eternal city, Rome, as twilight drapes it in hues of lavender and deep blue. The 7 hills are silhouettes against a fading sky, and the ancient stones, worn smooth by centuries, seem to exhale the day. A gentle breeze might stir the cypress trees, their fragrance mingling with the distant, subtle scent of beeswax and old parchment. We are not here to dissect, but to feel, not to analyze, but to absorb. This is a story of quiet evolution, of a sacred duty unfolding with the slow, deliberate pace of turning epochs. Let the concerns of your world recede, like ripples on a still pond, as we listen to the whispers of the past, carried on the breath of time itself. Our journey begins in the nascent years of the Christian faith, long before grand basilicas pierced the Roman sky, long before the word conclave held its now familiar meaning. In those early centuries, after the passing of the Bishop of Rome, the leader of the small but growing Christian community, the process of choosing a successor was deeply embedded in the local fellowship. Picture, if you will, hidden gatherings, perhaps in the quiet hush of the catacombs, those underground passages that offered refuge and a place for secret worship. Or imagine a simple domus ecclesiae, a house church, where the faithful met. The light would be from flickering oil lamps, casting long, dancing shadows on walls, perhaps adorned with simple, hopeful symbols. Here, the clergy of Rome, the presbyters and deacons, along with the devoted laity, the people themselves, would come together. There were no elaborate rituals as we know them, no sealed doors or intricate voting slips. Instead, there was a profound sense of shared responsibility, of communal discernment. Voices would be raised, not in argument, but in thoughtful contribution. Prayers would be offered, earnest and direct, seeking guidance from the divine. Sometimes, bishops from neighboring towns, respected for their wisdom and experience, would be invited to assist, to offer their counsel, to ensure the choice was sound and widely accepted. Think of it as a community carefully, prayerfully seeking its shepherd. The qualities sought were often those of deep faith, courage in the face of persecution, wisdom to guide, and compassion to nurture. A name, perhaps spoken softly at first, might then gain resonance, carried on a wave of spiritual consensus, a feeling that this was indeed the one chosen. It was an organic process, growing from the very soil of their shared life and faith, a testament to their unity and purpose. The air would be thick, not with tension, but with a quiet, fervent hope. As the centuries unfurled like an ancient scroll, the church in Rome grew in size and significance. Its bishop became a figure of increasing importance, not just for Rome, but for the wider Christian world. With this enhanced role came the understanding that the method of election needed greater definition, more structure, to protect its integrity from the sometimes turbulent currents of the secular world. Powerful families or even emperors might seek to influence the choice, a pressure that could cloud the spiritual discernment required. A gentle but firm step towards this new order was taken in the 11th century, a period of significant reform within the Church. In the year 1059, Pope Nicholas II, a man of foresight and piety, issued a papal bull, a formal decree that would forever alter the landscape of papal elections. Imagine him in a quiet scriptorium, the only sounds the scratching of a quill on parchment and the soft murmur of prayer as he carefully crafted the words that would bring new clarity. This decree specified that the cardinal bishops, those cardinals who were bishops of the ancient dioceses surrounding Rome and held the highest rank within the College of Cardinals, would have the principal role in the election. They were the Pope's closest advisors, men of proven wisdom and experience. Their task was to nominate and essentially select the candidate. Following their choice, the other cardinal clergy, and then the wider Roman clergy and people, would give their formal assent, their approval. This was not an abrupt revolution, but rather a careful pruning, a guiding of the vine to ensure it produced good fruit. The role of the College of Cardinals as the designated electoral body was now firmly planted, its roots beginning to take hold in the sacred soil of tradition. The aim was clear: to ensure the election was conducted with greater solemnity by those most equipped for such a profound spiritual responsibility, shield it as much as possible from worldly interference. The path towards the conclave, as we understand it, continued to be paved, stone by careful stone, through the deliberations of great ecumenical councils, gatherings of church leaders from across Christendom. Imagine these assemblies, perhaps within the ancient echoing walls of the Lateran Basilica in Rome, the mother church of the city. Light would filter through high windows, illuminating learned faces bent in contemplation, the air filled with the murmur of Latin, the language of scholarship and prayer. The Second Lateran Council, convened in 1139, took another significant step. It decreed that the formal assent of the lower clergy or the laity was no longer a required part of the election process. This further emphasized that the choice of the Pope was an internal matter for the College of Cardinals, a sacred trust placed upon their shoulders, to be exercised with prayerful independence. Then, a truly pivotal moment arrived with the Third Lateran Council in 1179, presided over by Pope Alexander III. He himself had experienced a disputed election and understood deeply the need for greater clarity and unity. After much prayer and thoughtful deliberation, this council established a rule that has resonated through the centuries. To be validly elected pope, a candidate must receive a 2/3 majority of the votes of the cardinals present. This was not an arbitrary number. The requirement of a 2/3 majority was a profound statement, a mechanism designed to foster a stronger consensus, to ensure that the chosen pontiff was not the product of a narrow faction, but rather a figure who could command the broad respect and obedience of the electors, and thus of the wider church. It was a move to prevent schisms, those painful divisions that had troubled the Church in the past. Furthermore, this council clarified that all cardinals, cardinal bishops, cardinal priests, and cardinal deacons were to be electors, their voices equally vital in this most solemn decision. The foundation for a unified, prayerful, and decisive electoral process was now firmly laid. The very word conclave carries within it the essence of its meaning. It comes from the Latin phrase cum clave, which translates to with a key. This immediately evokes the image of a locked room, of seclusion, of the electors being set apart for their sacred task. This practice of sequestering the cardinals did not appear overnight, but evolved from experience and necessity. A particularly dramatic chapter in this evolution unfolded in the 13th century. After Pope Clement IV passed away in 1268, the cardinals gathered in the city of Viterbo, a picturesque medieval town north of Rome, to elect his successor. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Seasons changed. The cardinals deliberated, they prayed, but they could not reach the required consensus. The papal throne remained vacant for an unprecedented length of time, nearly 3 long years. This extraordinary and lengthy interregnum, and the methods used to end it, spurred the newly elected Pope Gregory X, who had himself been one of these sequestered in Viterbo, to act decisively. In 1274, at the Second Council of Lyon, he issued the papal constitution Ubi Periculum, where there is danger. This landmark document formally established the strict rules for the conclave. It mandated that the cardinals should gather in a single, locked location 10 days after a pope's death. They were to have no contact with the outside world. Their food was to be passed through a small opening, and if they failed to elect a pope within 3 days, their meals would be reduced, and further reduced after 5 more days. The goal was clear: to create an environment of intense focus, prayer, and efficient deliberation, shielded from all external pressures and internal distractions. The conclave, as a secluded, prayerful crucible for electing a pope, was now truly born. As centuries flowed by, the traditions of the conclave solidified, and its primary location became the Vatican. And since the late 15th century, one space above all has become the iconic heart of the sacred assembly, the Sistine Chapel. Close your eyes and imagine stepping into this vast, hallowed chamber. The air is cool and still, imbued with the scent of centuries of prayer, beeswax, and ancient artistry. Your gaze is drawn upwards to Michelangelo's breathtaking frescoes covering the barrel-vaulted ceiling. The depiction of the creation of Adam, the powerful hand of God reaching out to give life. The stories of Noah and the great flood. The stern, wise faces of prophets and sibyls, all looking down. And on the altar wall, the overwhelming majesty of the Last Judgment. These masterpieces are not mere decorations. They become silent, profound witnesses, a constant reminder of divine majesty and the gravity of the cardinal's task. Within these sacred walls, the rituals of the conclave unfold with solemn precision. Imagine the silence before the voting begins, a silence so deep you could almost hear the whisper of a prayer. Each cardinal, in quiet contemplation, receives a rectangular ballot paper. Upon it they will write, in disguised handwriting to ensure anonymity, eligo in summum pontificem. I elect as supreme pontiff, followed by the name of their chosen candidate. The ballot is then carefully folded and refolded. One by one, in order of precedence, each cardinal elector walks solemnly to the altar, holding his folded ballot aloft. He kneels for a moment in prayer, then rises and declares, Tester Christum Dominum, qui me judicaturus est, me eum eligere, quem secundum Deum judico eligidebere. I call to witness Christ the Lord, who will be my judge, that I am electing the one whom before God I think ought to be elected. He then places the ballot onto a paten, a small plate, and slides it into a large chalice or urn. Once all ballots are cast, they are meticulously counted. If the number of ballots does not match the number of electors, they are burned without being opened, and the vote is taken again. If the numbers match, the ballots are opened by scrutineers, and the names are read aloud, each elector keeping his own tally. All of this is done with profound reverence and meticulous care, a sacred dance of discernment. And then comes one of the most iconic and evocative traditions of the conclave, the smoke. After each round of voting, typically twice a day, the ballots and any notes are tied together with a needle and thread and taken to a special stove installed in the Sistine Chapel. Here they are burned. If no candidate has received the necessary 2/3 majority, special chemicals, or in earlier times, damp straw, are added to the fire to produce thick black smoke, the fumata nera. This dark plume, curling from a chimney atop the Vatican and visible to the crowds gathered in St. Peter's Square and to the world watching from afar, is a silent signal. The process continues. The cardinals are still in prayer and deliberation. It is a sign of patience, of the ongoing sacred search. Imagine the hushed anticipation in the square, the eyes turned skyward, the quiet murmur when black smoke appears. But when, at last, a candidate achieves the required majority and after a moment of profound personal prayer accepts the papacy, a different signal is prepared. The ballots are burned, this time with dry straw or chemicals that ensure the smoke is white, the fumata bianca. This clear, bright plume rising against the Roman sky is a message of joy and completion. Habemus papam. We have a pope. The words begin as a whisper among officials, then spread. Soon the great bells of St. Peter's Basilica begin to peal, their joyous sound cascading across the city, a sound of celebration and new beginnings, yet still carrying a deep, resonant peace. And so, from those humble beginnings in the heart of ancient Rome, through centuries of refinement and divine seeking, the conclave has evolved. It is an unbroken thread of tradition, a testament to the enduring human quest for guidance, for leadership rooted in faith and prayer. It is a story of community, of structure, of seclusion, and ultimately of a choice made in the hope of peace and unity for the Church and the world. The details have shifted like sands through an hourglass. The challenges of each era have been met with new wisdom, but the core, the quiet, prayerful discernment by the College of Cardinals, seeking to know God's will, remains a constant beating heart within this ancient rite. As the echoes of this long history now settle gently around you, like softest down, allow yourself to drift deeper and deeper into the embrace of peaceful sleep. May the sense of enduring tradition, of quiet solemnity, and of ultimate resolution, bring comfort and tranquility to your resting mind. Rest now. Sleep deeply. Peace be with you